Welcome to the TryPod, where we break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. Sorry, the typical technical difficulties. Something popped up on me just when I was about to go live. Here I am, barbecuing alone again, ready to jump into round 10, guys, off a magic round. And it was a absolute highlight, not just seeing all the footy action, but catching up with some dear friends from the pod family who have travelled from far and wide to be there for the weekend at Brisbane. And as well, it was wonderful to meet people who came up and said hello. That blew me away how many people there are out there that are long-time listeners. I really am proud of how strong and widespread our community spans. And I only delivered 2 and 2 on my Magic Round best bets. And I am aware that's 3 weeks in a row where we've gone 2 and 2 exactly. Not a disaster, but not good enough, of course. And funnily enough, I typically am finding a best bet in about every second game. And that trend continues for round 10, where I do have 4 best bets to share. I've got sharpshooters clips loaded in the cannon, ready to go. And they were on song, going 3 and 0. And a special shout out really to all the boys. I mean, Padonis is 6 and 1, absolutely scorching. We've got Benny, who just won for the 3rd straight time and picking try scorers as well, so getting plus odds every week. And the Undertaker back to his winning ways. I believe he's 5 and 2. They've all got plays to share tonight. I recapped the action on Sunday night, so I hope everyone who attended the weekend is starting to feel normal again, because round 10 is already basically upon us. The team lists are out, as you can see with my shared screen there. And let's just dive into round 10. As you would be well aware if you follow the pod regularly, we don't make you wait for the best part, the best bets. We share that straight off the top. So let's get straight into it. Undertaker correcting me, saying he's 4-3. So appreciate the honesty there. Still 4 and 3, nothing to sneeze at. Let's see how we can go for our round 10 TryPod best bets. I am taking the Raiders minus 1.5 in the game of the round. That's $1.83 on Sportsbet. I think they're going every bit as good as the Bulldogs, and I really think that extra advantage is just the true home advantage that the Raiders will enjoy in Canberra, the juice that's going to be flowing down there. I just think this team is getting to a level of intensity nobody else can quite match. And the Raiders' last 3 weeks have won after trailing by 14, 18, and 16 points. Imagine if they actually get a game that's played on their terms. So I like the Raiders. That's, of course, over the Bulldogs, minus 1.5. Later Saturday, I'm going the Dragons plus 2.5 at $1.90, Ladbrokes and Neds. Now, that is against New Zealand. New Zealand's by far the better form team, coming in 3rd on the ladder, in fact. But this is a must-win game for the Dragons at home. And I really feel that it's anybody's game, but I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Dragons win that well. I just think the desperation, as opposed to New Zealand, you can call them confident, but could be due for a letdown. I'll get more into the specifics when we get to that match. Later on Saturday night, I'm laying 3.5 points with the Penrith Panthers, who reminded us that they have not disappeared in 2025 and played to a really high level, of course, on Sunday, smacking around the Broncos. So minus 3.5, $1.83, Ladbrokes and Neds. That's in Townsville against the Cowboys, who suffered a tough defeat. And what I also love about this game is you've got no Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. That's their captain out, while the Panthers getting back To'o and Kenny. That's a low line for mine. And then I'm going to round it out Sunday and lay maybe the biggest amount of points I've laid this season, minus 14.5 with the Storm at $1.90 on Sportsbet. And that's not overly complicated either. I've got a Melbourne team that's lost 2 of the last 3, blew a 14-point lead on the weekend. And in fact, the other loss was also a 14-point lead. I think it was 16-2 at one stage to Melbourne against the Dolphins. So if they get up big against the Tigers, the foot will not come off the throat. And I know the Tigers have got a bit of ability about them and have had 2 impressive and hard-fought wins the last couple of weeks that they needed to get. But now this could be the exhale spot. This is a spot where I just don't think that the Tigers can match motors in Melbourne. I know Harry Grant's still out, but that's a very complete footy side that's going to be looking to play close to their best. And I think that line only increases. In fact, I can already see it 16.5 in locations. So if you disagree with me, I'll let you know. There once again, advantage to the punters is that some of these lines are across a key number on a few of the games, and I always strive to point that out to help you guys out. So even if you don't necessarily agree with me on every game, which you certainly don't have to, you can still find an advantage. Now, we've got Eels Dolphins on the screen. So let's just jump straight into that. That is the first game of round 10. And I've got to say, this is probably the best ever 14th versus 17th matchup in NRL history. I know that we've only had 17 teams for 3 years, but my point being, neither of these teams are as bad as their record, and both can inject plenty of excitement into this one. The Eels are 2.5-point favourites, despite the fact they are last on the ladder. It is at CommBank. And if I didn't already mention, of course, it's against the Dolphins. The Eels came up short against Cronulla, although at least our either team 1 to 12 did hit in that one. I can't say the same for the Dolphins. They were off the pace, and that did cost us a best bet against the Roosters. Kalfusi and Donahue are back for the Finns, but JMK is out again. I could only play against my side here. I'd be looking to Parramatta, I'm sad to say. I mean, this is a team that is last, but they're really only 1-1 with Moses back. Not to mention a really sneaky important addition of Dylan Walker and how much that actually unlocks the halves and adds an extra point of attack in the middle of the field for the Eels. Parramatta is just a very different team to the one that lost, their first 4 or 5 straight games. And were very competitive again against a strong Sharks side in Brisbane, as opposed to the Finns, who unfortunately have fallen apart since halftime in Canberra. It's not a coincidence that that was when Saifidi went out with injury. Of course, Plath remains out also. Given the importance of this game, the Dolphins off a couple of losses. By no means do I want to write Redcliffe off, but definitely I lean Para. I said the line's 2.5. You can't even find 1.5. It was pretty tempting. So if you like the Eels, you probably lay the -1.5, which it is with Sportsbet. Then we move to Friday. So we'll scroll down to Knights Titans at McDonald Jones Stadium. The line is -6.5 with Newcastle, but you can find 5.5 as well, of course, if you like the favourites. Someone fact check me right now, please, if you can. Of all the games so far this season, where we've had 2 teams rematching, has there been a single team that has won both games yet? Has anybody beaten a side, played them again this year, and beaten them again? Because the reason I ask is because I can't think of those circumstances yet this season. And of course, this is a rematch where the Titans did beat the Knights. I want to say it was about round 3, and we did have a best bet on the Titans on that day. So the losers of the first encounter have returned the favour in every game except, thank you, Lee, except Dogs Titans. So on Sunday, that trend was bucked. And I guess I would say it's still been the case that for the majority, the team that lost the first one won the second. And in this case, it was a double-digit spread that the Titans, the revenge factor wasn't enough for the Titans to overcome. And the Titans, good timing, and that's the beauty of being live. And I really appreciate you guys helping me out in the comments. This is a team that really is struggling. When I look at the Titans, the reason I can't back them in this game is they just cannot play for 80 minutes. This team will not win consistently this season unless they can actually apply themselves with grit, toughness, and resilience for the entirety of a contest. Now, I'll get to what I think of the Knights in a minute, but we'll just address the team lists and changes for this game. The Knights, of course, snapped a 5-game skid last week, dominating in Magic Round over the Bunnies. They've named the same squad. The Titans do get back Jaden Campbell, as you'll see on your screen, at 7 with an early return from an ankle injury. Fafita supposedly has an ankle complaint. At least that's the stated reason why the Titans once again leave out the $1 million a season second rower. It's 12th versus 16th, but it is intriguing. Again, we've established that, yes, you can actually beat a team 2 out of 2 this season. It's happened one occasion, and the Titans were the recipients. But in this case, it's more likely these sides will go 1-1. As the Undertaker says, you could have just left it at Titans can't play. When I said they can't play for 80. So that's why I asked the questions about rematches. When these sides did meet, the Titans actually were quite dominant. And remember the trend I talked about, winless teams at home. They ended up going about 7-1 against the spread, and the Titans were in that spot. And on that occasion, got the win. The thing about Newcastle, not only will they be looking for a bit of revenge here, not only are they looking to get their season back on track, everyone understands the Knights have struggled in attack, but they demonstrated on the weekend they still are capable, Newcastle. When they get an even share of possession, they hold the footy, that they've still obviously got some very explosive attacking weapons. And then, as the Undertaker did mention a week ago, and why his best bet was unders in the Knights Bunnies game, this Newcastle team is under the radar, very sound defensively, as opposed to the Titans. Attack's not really their problem, and they did find 5 tries against the Bulldogs, but there's no toughness whatsoever, and the defense really is an issue. That's why I lean to the Knights. Definitely thought about playing the -5.5. That's on Sportsbet, by the way. And I know that'll appeal to plenty of you. I think if you like Newcastle, I would eat that up as quickly as possible, because I think it probably gets to a consensus 6.5. I think part of the reason I'm leaving the Knights is because I actually know how obvious and popular that side will be, and I don't usually want to lean into a lot of those teams. And perhaps Jaden Campbell provides a spark. I mean, I don't want to necessarily bet against Titans when they've hit rock bottom, but who's to say that the Titans couldn't get lower as well? This is definitely going to be a hard place to play. And on that note, I never really like betting against the Newcastle Knights at McDonald Jones, but they have struggled at home again this year. I believe only 1 win at home so far, and we're through round 9. Now, we do have our first pick from the sharpshooters as well. I think it's going to be a try scorer on this game. So while I haven't got a best bet, we can listen to Benny, who, as I said, has won 3 in a row.
G'day, TryPod fan. Benny here. As always, thanks to the lads for having me on. We got pretty lucky last week to get our 3rd winner in a row, with AKP swooping on a loose ball and then running the length of the field to score a try late in the game. Wasn't looking good, but we got there in the end. Inch or a mile, doesn't matter how you get it done. This week we're going to take Kalen Ponga, who's yet to score a try this year, but he averages 1 every 3 games. The Titans have been historically a fantastic matchup for him, scoring I think it's 5 of the last 7. Simply too good to be going this long without tries. He's $2.75 on Bet365, playing the Titans at home, who are arguably the worst team in the comp. Maybe not even arguably, are the worst team in the comp. I'm backing him to break the duck egg and get his first try of the year at $2.75. Cheers, lads. Let's get it.
And it's got to hurt Benny to say that as well, since he is a diehard Titans fan. But there you go. He's picking. He got a Titan and he got him over the line. And mind you, a little bit of luck when AKP pounced on a bouncing ball 85 meters out. But when you got that much speed, you get an opening. You can make it count. Certainly, Pong is capable of doing the same. So there you go. Is this one just an obvious Knights head-to-head or Knights -5.5, guys? Is anyone brave enough to take the Titans? As always, please let me know how you see it. We move to Friday night, where there's 2 sides that were dealt the biggest defeats of Magic Round are clashing. That is the South Sydney Rabbitohs and the Brisbane Broncos. And the line is Brisbane minimized it, sorry. Brisbane -10.5. Let me see if I can put the teams back on the screen. All I did was accidentally minimized it. Now that display disappeared. So we'll bring that back if we can, just so that you guys can run your eye over the team lists as I do the same. Souths do get back Latrell from suspension. That's the first thing you're going to notice. Humphreys also returns. Mambazelos is out with an injury. Gray left the field early last week, had a cork. He is named in the interchange, which you can't see, but Gray is named in the 14 jersey. Madge has resisted the urge to parachute Ezra Mam into the team. That was intriguing to me this week because Mam has served his suspension. And of course, the Broncos had lost 3 or 4. And then I thought, maybe Mam could even come back by the bench, but he will return via Queensland Cup. So that does leave Hunt and Reynolds with an opportunity, you could say, to redeem from last week in the halves. Because, as I mentioned, Brisbane's lost 3 of the last 4 and a bad loss at home where they were nowhere near it against Penrith on Sunday. But last time Brisbane lost, prior to round 9, the Broncos responded with an emphatic bulldozing of the Bulldogs. So you can say this is a good team off a bad loss. And that's the side you usually want to bet in the Brisbane Broncos. Souths are off a bad loss as well. The problem is I don't think that without Wyden and Walker that you can call Souths a good team. So you'd say Brisbane must win this, must be a substantial favourite. That's no surprise to anyone. But double digits, that's a pretty solid line. I think the key is for Souths, can Humphreys and Sullivan play anywhere close to, the 650 plus games experience with Brisbane's 6 and 7? It's an obvious bounce back spot for the Broncos, as Colt says, Payne Haas to run riot. And Kenobi saying the Broncos are consistently inconsistent. Ryan might play some alt margins with Broncos. Don't love them at minus 10.5. Jeez, it's all happening for me tonight, guys. Sorry, now my laptop's telling me that the power's dying. Is that any better? Because the last thing I need is my power gone out. Sorry, guys, I'm mucking around here. It's quite important. And I think I've got the wrong cord plugged in. Oh, yeah, something unplugged. That doesn't get it done. Sorry, guys, the beauty of live podcasting, eh? Okay, I think I got my charger in. Yeah, just couldn't muck around with that. You get that flashing warning and it's like next thing it dies. And in a live pod, that's not what I would have needed. All right, obvious bounce back spot, as I was saying, for Brisbane. And you know what? Sometimes it is that simple. If you're really confident that a team is going to win, you might think, 10.5 is a lot of points. But if there's no real doubt to you that they'll be too good and that they'll get the win, then you usually should just lay the line with the favourite as well. I definitely lean to Brisbane, but I will leave it as a lean just because the Rabbitohs have lost 4 in a row themselves. They will get up for this at home. And I don't think personally that Souths, with those key weapons still missing, will be sharp enough to slice through a determined Brisbane. But you're probably playing a public side in the Broncos if you lay the 10.5. Undertaker, you hung in there longer than the Titans. Yeah, James saying good team off a bad loss. Kanubi, step away for now, but good luck on the numbers. Stay safe out there. Thanks for joining us, Kanubi. Always appreciate everyone's comments. So let's move along. Let me know if I'm missing any great bets out there from your perspective, guys. Now, how about this game? It deserves a better time slot than 3 p.m. Saturday, but nonetheless, can't wait for this one in the capital. It's game of the round, of course, first versus second. Both won on Sunday, but in very different fashion. That's the Green Machine hosting the Bulldogs. My best bet minus 1.5 on Sportsbet $1.83, but it's minus 2.5 in most locations. Sorry, I scroll so you can see more of the team list there. Let me know how you're seeing this. So my best bet, as I said, is Canberra, but who is on the Bulldogs? And I want to know who you like and why. Ricky has stuck with the same side that completed that extra time comeback over Melbourne and have won 5 in a row. Burton is back from suspension for the Bulldogs. Now, Preston faces the judiciary tonight, but considering he's facing a 4-game ban for a crusher, I tend to believe there'll be long odds to overturn that completely, and Preston would be a big loss, especially considering Tupanua is also already suspended for the Bulldogs, as is Josh Curran. So that's why those are among the reasons why Canberra will be my first best bet of the round at minus 1.5. I spoke about home ground advantage. That's going to be a real factor with the exuberance of this fan base hitting fever pitch. And when you look at the Raiders, down 16-0 against the Titans, come back and win big. Down 18 points against the Finns and win by double digits again. And then down 14 against, no joke, against the Melbourne Storm, like the hardest team to probably overturn a deficit with. And you come back and win that as well. Not only is that going to fuel incredible amounts of self-belief, but it also just reminds you that Canberra haven't even put it together for 80 minutes, basically since that round 6 performance in Darwin. Now, I know the Dogs are a very capable team, not one you really enjoy betting against, and spoke about how dominant the Dogs were, but I don't think I just spent enough time highlighting particularly the skipper, Stephen Crichton. He may be the form footy player on the planet, and he has to be target number 1 for the Raiders defense to slow down. Then you do bring back Matty Burton to this team with his run game and, of course, kicking game. It will help the Dogs dictate field position. But I'm still with Sticky's man because I've seen the Raiders reach this level of defensity, this level of defensive intensity. I just made up a word there, defensity. That it just, when the Raiders really lock in, nobody can match them. And these recent comebacks, you look at the way the Raiders came back against the Sharks, also in Canberra a few weeks ago. Like, the confidence is great. You want to back a team that has confidence, but then you worry about teams that have won 5 in a row getting overconfident. But I'm not concerned on this occasion because you're playing top of the ladder. You're hardly going to look past the Bulldogs. So I feel like Canberra's definitely up for this, so connected in defense, turning teams away for long periods. But the attack is really in sync as well. And a lot of these young stars are blossoming before our eyes. So given the fact that the Bulldogs are still just a little under strength, I think I would pick the Raiders on a neutral, and this will not be a neutral venue. This could be capital punishment. So I'm going to expect that the home side gets the 2 points and win by 2 or more. Richard says, lean to Raiders. Canberra youth keep surprising. Colt, I would entertain either team 1 to 12. Hudson Young, ATS. I mean, the form of Hudson Young too. So if Preston misses out on this game, it could be hard for Preston to get into the New South Wales squad because they're just that chocker full of quality second rowers. But I don't think Hudson Young can be left out of the Origin arena this year. Crisp says probably not tipping Raiders 2 in a row. What's 2 in a row? Raiders are searching to win 6 in a row here. Ryan, my gut says Dogs win, but I'm staying away from a head-to-head perspective. Don't mind unders. Unders could be a pretty solid call in this game as well. I mean, as you expect when you get the elite sides in the comp. And whether Canberra's truly elite, whether they're a true premiership contender, I probably wouldn't go that far. Like, if you put me on the spot, and no one has, but I'm just going to put myself on the spot, like, I still think the upside of a Bulldogs, Storm, Broncos, Penrith is still higher than Canberra. I mean, I dare say even North Queensland on their day. Those sides at their very best, to me, may still be better than Canberra. But just the run that Canberra's on right now, they are hotter than any other footy team on the planet, and I'm going to ride it. So there's a difference between winning games in September and finals footy. And basically the Raiders are playing a finals level intensity right now through the regular season. And that's what's fueling this win. Whether the Raiders have another gear, that's my point. But, games like this is going to make everyone take notice if you haven't already. So I do have a best bet there, but I appreciate, as Ryan says, think it'll be close. I do appreciate that opinions are going to be split on that one. As we move to the next game where I also have a best bet, it's Dragons Warriors at Winnie Stadium. And my best bet is Dragons plus 2.5, $1.90 Ladbrokes and Neds, and it is 2.5 everywhere. Tell me in the comments. I know there's always a lot of Wars fans tuning in, so tell me, New Zealand fans or New Zealand backers, why have I got this one wrong? And I just want to shout you out as well, as JK is commenting. Now he's one of the Wars fans that were basically my MVP for Magic Round, was that Warriors fans. And on first look, some people might think this line's a little light. New Zealand's only -2.5, but I actually think the Dragons will win this one, despite the fact New Zealand are third on the ladder, only one loss since Vegas, and a mighty first half at Suncorp was just enough ultimately to outlast North Queensland. Berry is out, which moves Capewar to centre. Wateni Zelezniak in for the first time this year after an injury in the preseason, in for Kossi. RTS also an option in the reserves. The Saints lost to the Tigers by a try, which stings especially after that 12-point swing. I'm sure you saw that ridiculous play on the stroke of halftime that the Dragons suffered dearly from. Sua gets a chance to redeem himself. He's in the starting side again. I was curious if Flano would be spiteful enough to do otherwise. King Tongia remains in the halves with Flano Jr. And on the bench, there's a 19-year-old who doesn't move the needle, but when you got a name like Loco Jr., Pacifici Tonga, that deserves a shout out. Hope you have a big debut, young fella, especially to help our best bet get across the line. I just think that while there could be a deflation factor in terms of like the Dragons are just soul searching, how many games have we blown, how many things can go wrong, it's still early enough in the season. The Dragons are 3-5. They're at home. It's a very important game. I think it's a kitchen sink type spot as opposed to New Zealand. I know you could argue that they're riding a confidence wave similar to the case I made for Canberra, but I'm sorry because I could actually see a come down or a letdown spot for the Warriors. And a game like this could be just that type of candidate. So I just think New Zealand struggles to match St. George's enthusiasm. I've also got the better goal kicker if it's tight in Holmes versus Metcalf. I really feel like the Dragons pack mixes it with New Zealand. There's no Fisher Harris there still. Toby Catchman, one of the most underrated props in the comp for mine. Look for him to go toe-to-toe with Mitchie Barnett. And it could be tight, but as I say, I wouldn't actually be shocked if the Saints win well. I'll put a few more of your comments up. I understand there are people back in New Zealand, and I don't blame you. And what a great year they're having. And I spoke about this on the recap. What a stark contrast from the team that just laid a total egg in Las Vegas and put us all off the scent. I've got the receipts, people saying that the Warriors were destined for a wooden spoon this year. And other than one loss in Melbourne, which is pretty forgivable, although it was a big magnitude, but still, the Warriors have won every game in the Southern Hemisphere this season. Now, sharpshooter pick incoming. It's the Padonis. I've got a best bet, Dragons plus 2.5. We were both at the same best bet last week with the Knights, so surely Padonis is with us again here.
G'day guys, Padonis here, out and about today, coming to you for the live preview where I'm going to give out my best bet of the week, currently sitting at a 6-1 record, looking to build on that momentum. And we're going to go with the Dragons, plus 2.5 and $1.90 on Ladbrokes and Neds. Put simply, I just think that these two teams couldn't be more different in form lines from what we've seen. The Warriors with a spirited, euphoric win in Magic Round against the Cowboys. I think they're going to come here with a little bit of a flat spot. Their first back-to-back travel week so far to start the season. The Dragons back at home after a month have lost 3 straight away games. They weren't that far away against the Tigers. We all know what Jaden Sewell did over the line there with a big swing before half-time. I just think the Dragons are healthy. They're going to give it their all here, and I just don't think the gap between these sides is correct. I had this closer to pick 'em, so I've got to play the home dog in a must-win desperate spot. So good luck, gamble responsibly.
There you have it. The Padonis is also liking the Dragons as his bet of the week. Hopefully he recovers. I'm not sure if you saw that video, if that's a bad case of pink eye or if he's got a shiner there, but surely no one will be picking fights with the Padonis. He's 6-1, as I said. And how about the stat that we've never lost this season? We're 100% anytime one of my best bets of the round aligns with a best bet picked, of course, independently by the sharpshooters. So that would apply to St. George plus 2.5. And I think we're actually going to get alignment in the next game, given the fact that Matty, the Undertaker, has told me he's also on Cowboys Panthers line. And it is a 4.5 line in most places, though my best bet's -3.5 on Ladbrokes and Neds. the Cowboys will still be wondering how they didn't win on Saturday after having all the running in the second half, but leaving themselves a little bit too much to do against New Zealand and then blowing opportunities at the end. There actually wasn't too much to do. North Queensland could have, at one point thought they did level the scores, but ultimately just ran out of time and couldn't keep composure when it counted. So that stings a little bit for North Queensland, as opposed to the Panthers pumping Brisbane. This would be another rematch. Obviously, we get more and more rematches as we get into the year. It was a little rare earlier in the season, but each and every week we're going to get teams now playing for the second occasion. So you look back on that first meeting and see what you can glean from that. It was an unexpected win for North Queensland in Sydney. So that's worth factoring in. Potentially revenge factor for Penrith, because last time Penrith played a side that had already beaten them this year, it was a resounding response and big win over the Roosters, you may recall, and that we were on the Panthers for a best bet that night. Cotter suspension's big, especially when Penrith gets a key middle back in Kenny and the meter eater to start the sets in Brian To'o. That's why Penrith are a best bet for mine. I think after Penrith got that big win over the Roosters, they took a step straight back, losing to Manly. And now you've shown what you're capable of again, and that there's still, as I said before, plenty of time to go this season and plenty of ability in this Penrith side that, of course, are working out some new combinations and trying to replace sort of irreplaceable players. But if you can play a level like Penrith demonstrated against no joke of a team in Brisbane at Suncorp, then there's confidence will be high for Penrith. But as I've mentioned several times, with Origin impending, Penrith needs to stack wins when they have the superstars available. That's the case this weekend. So I think that Penrith will go up and get it done in Townsville. I know the Cowboys are a handful. This is much more of a bet, I would say, on Penrith than against North Queensland. But I also just think the fact that the Cowboys have already beaten Penrith this year means they certainly won't be taken lightly. And don't forget, like in that Panthers-Cowboys game, which was at CommBank, I think, like if McLean can draw and pass, Penrith probably wins that one the first time around as well. So to me, -4, 3.5's not high enough of a line. 4.5's probably not either, but of course we're going to shop for the best number. And I think Undertaker has done the same.
G'day guys, Matty here. My bet of the week's going to be the Panthers -3.5 against the Cowboys. That's $1.90 on Bet R. In round 5, these two teams met. It was 12.5 point favourites for the Panthers. So if you flipped home field, that'd be about 8.5 at North Queensland. This line's 3.5. And in that round 5 clash, the Panthers in the back line had Laurie, Jenkins and McLean. I'm happy to see the back of them, and two huge ins for the Panthers this week in Kenny and Brian To'o back in there as well, plus Dylan Edwards. So we're getting a way discounted line, a way better Panthers team. So I think it's too much of an adjustment down for the Panthers. I think they should be getting pretty close back to their peak rating. Go the Panthers.
Love the way Matty broke it down. I guess in fairness, when the Cowboys went into that game against Penrith, the Cowboys were also really struggling at the time. They may have had one win. I think the Cowboys might have won I think at most Cowboys had won one game. Of course, the Cowboys lost the first, I want to say, 3 this season. So the Cowboys weren't rated very highly, whereas now, even though the Cows are off a loss, there's a bit more respect in the marketplace for the Cowboys. But I still think the way that Matty breaks it down, the fact that Penrith had key personnel out on that occasion, yes, you're flipping home field, but that was a double-digit line, and now it's 3.5. And that would mean, once again, we have the criteria of one of my best bets that I've picked going into the round ends up being the identical pick to the bet of the week submitted by one of our sharpshooters, which is yet to lose this year, which is one of the many reasons I love the inclusion of the sharpshooters. And you get to hear a different voice to mine. Lord knows you probably get sick of mine by the end of the show. So to hear someone else explain why they love something as a best bet as well. And if you're curious, because Under plays a lot of totals, so why was I pretty sure he was on the same play as me? The boys send me a screenshot of the market as well as their video. That allows me to know which game to feed it in for. So when he sent me the market and it was Penrith -3.5, well, the line was 3.5. Obviously, I knew it wasn't going to be playing Cowboys +3.5 because it's 4.5s available in a lot of other places. So didn't have to be Einstein to figure out that the Undertaker was taking a line this week, and he's laying it with me. Let's move to Sunday. Storm Tigers at Amy Park. Let's scroll down so we can have a little look at the team lists as well. Both have named the same sides from Magic Round. In fact, I can't play the Tigers. I know they've had a wonderful fortnight in response to that really tumultuous 1 to 2 weeks prior to that. So West have won 2 in a row, fending off the Dragons on Saturday night, while the Storm have lost 2 of 3. Both those defeats occurred at Suncorp Stadium, including that stunning finish against the Raiders. This is a pretty simple breakdown to me, though. Let me know if you see it any other way. I just want to play Storm after they blew a 14-point lead, because I know they're going to come in feeling nasty and fierce and with a purpose. And I acknowledge this is a pretty high line. Like, this is not some easy beat, hopeless West side. This is a legit top 8 hopeful side. However, it's just one of those games you basically guarantee when you back they'll be totally in. Too much firepower ultimately. And I also think this will be a game where it'll be Melbourne's middles that step up and can stampede West. The likes of Liero really wanting a redemption game. Josh King, I think, is an origin smoky as well. Everyone talking about Terrell May, of course, and he's probably done so much you can't leave him out of the Blues. But King, also a very capable counterpart there. And it is a high line, but a couple of things you want when you play a favourite laying a large number. You want full. You don't want them to be taking the opponent lightly or thinking ahead. When you've lost 2 of 3 and you're off a loss, you're more likely to really get back to fundamentals and make it done. But 2, is there a motivation in margin? And I think there clearly is, because if Melbourne finds themselves up 8, 10, 12, even 14, 16 points, they've lost with that magnitude of lead twice in the last 3 weeks. So I can see the Storm putting the foot down as well. If you disagree with me, already you can get plus 16.5, for example, with the Tigers on doubles. And of course, if Melbourne wins by 16, it could both be winners. But you've got to be brave to go against this Melbourne side, unless you just don't rate Melbourne as high as myself. And of course, I mentioned that Harry Grant still remains out. But for me, there's still enough of a golf, and I do respect how hard the Melbourne are to win how hard Melbourne are to beat at Amy Park, which is why I think that'll be the largest line I've laid this season. And that leaves us with just one game to break down in round 10, Seagulls Sharks at 4 Pines Park. And it's actually Manly that are a 2.5-point favourite for this one. Manly, it's weird, having to wait the longest time to play again after, unfortunately, copying the bye for Magic Round, certainly from their fans' perspectives, although Manly probably needed that break. To play 3 games in 11 days is always tough, but that included a trip to and from Perth. Manly lost all 3 of those, but then with a longer turnaround, got a big win. Turbo's return over Penrith. Now Turbo's brother Gerbo is also back in the side alongside Jason Saab. The Sharks also turned the tables after a tough defeat, got a good win at Magic Round over Para. Talakai's out, Atkinson is in. I like Cronulla a fair bit more than Manly. I don't know if this is controversial, but sorry, when I named contenders before, I forgot the Sharks. But I still think the Sharks, at their best, would be better than Canberra. And I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. And we did see Canberra, Cronulla, and it went down to the wire. But it was also in Canberra, and it's won by an 80th minute try. It's not like there's a big gulf between those sides. But getting back to why I've made Raiders the best bet this weekend, I think the Raiders' current form is just incredible and is red hot. And I think that can be replicated. I don't think it's a letdown from Canberra. Whereas Cronulla, a little bit more hit and miss, but I just think there's still probably a little bit more upside about the Sharks. But I'm a little high on the Sharks, and you guys know I've actually been less optimistic in Manly. However, I agree that Manly, as the Undertaker comments, 13 plus. I agree that the Seagulls are a favourite here. It's a great time to play the side from the Shire because Manly's rested up from the bottom, didn't spend any extra energy, being involved in the festivities or playing what feels like a little bit more than one regular season game because you travel to Brisbane and, you play in front of a sellout. And of course, it is as simple as when Turbo's there, Manly's still a very good team. And I like the Sharks pack, and I think that's a reason why the Sharks can be elite this year. But I do feel we're by of an equaliser because your middles are going to be just replenished in terms of their energy levels. And I do respect Brookie, Sunday Arvo factor as well. So I make Manly a short favourite. In my view, that's what they are in the market. So I sit out the final game of the round. James says, I don't like the Eagles, but you got to respect them with Turbo. Zed is asking about Cronulla's overall record against Manly. Luke referring to earlier like Dragons, as I do, and so does the Undertaker. Zed also says not top 8 side, they'll fail as the season goes deep. And that would have to have been in relation to the Tigers, who are earlier on Sunday. So that's my view. The 8 matches for round 10, guys. For the 4th straight week, 4 best bets, but let's try and do better than 2 and 2. I feel pretty good, especially when 2 of my 4 are the exact same play that the sharpshooters have put up for their pick of the week. As always, I love to continue the conversation, so hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you like, dislike, or what else you found across the 8 games. Have a fantastic week, guys. Enjoy the action, and I'll be back on Sunday to recap it all. Lego.